Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Southside Beat here on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Steelers YouTube channel, podcasting network, wherever you're listening or watching. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Chris Halicke, Matt Williamson. Matt, what is going on, my friend? How are you?
Not a ton going on, which is fine by me. There's not a lot to discuss in the football world. We did have some rule changes and owner meeting stuff today, which is kind of exciting. No tush push is the start of the show, and might see some NFLers in the Olympics playing flag football. Who's to say?
Yeah.
But all in all, things are pretty quiet, and I'm cool with it.
Yeah, it's definitely. I wouldn't say it's like a dead time of year, but it's definitely a little bit of a lull that you kind of get between the draft and the start of OTAs and minicamp and that kind of stuff. I do want to get your perspective before we kind of dive into the main theme that we're going to talk about today. I do want to get your perspective on the tush push. Because I have my own thoughts. For those who don't know, there was a proposal given by the Packers to ban the tush push. It needed 24 votes. It got 22. So the tush push lives. So what are your thoughts on that rule? Did you want to see the play banned? Did you not want to see it banned? What are your thoughts on that?
It lives for now. I have a hunch it maybe only gets another year because, I mean, at the owners' meeting we were at, it was 16-16. Now it's 22. So there's some momentum against it. Now, I think they might have made a mistake in how they proposed it, though, because I would have liked to have seen them propose it as you just can't aid a runner, any runner. No aiding the runner in general. And to me, that's a better way it should be phrased. And I remember when that was a rule, and I didn't even know they got it out until we started pushing tushes again, So I would vote for it to get banned, but for two reasons. First off, I think it's a very unentertaining to watch, and that's not what you and I do for a living. But I mean, 99% of the people watching are doing this for entertainment, and I don't think it's entertaining. And the other thing is, fortunately, it hasn't happened yet, but I could see it being a very dangerous play.
Yep.
And Tomlin mentioned this when your guys' roundtable that there just haven't been enough snaps, play calls of the tush push to really judge it. And I worry that in 365 days or so, we might have enough, and it might have some injured quarterbacks. Just getting pushed from behind, and the inherent danger of it, anyways, worries me.
Yeah, like what if like you're being pushed, and just because of what's going on underneath the pile, if a guy pushes forward and you get a knee bending away, it shouldn't.
It's bent back in general, and not control your body. You're doing things against your will.
Yeah, and the main reason why I have an issue with it, I also wanted to see it banned, and unfortunately, it did not. I honestly, I don't care that Jason Kelsey was like a huge proponent of it, and that he came on like some sort of like WWE reveal, like we're like this is like some big story, and we're gonna cut a big promo to stop people. Listen, like, if all of a sudden offensive players can start aiding the runner in any situation, but especially in quarterback sneaks, are defenders all of a sudden allowed to start tackling those guys?
Yeah, really. Yeah, that's what you're saying, right?
Yeah, because it's already hard enough in some instances to tackle the ball carrier, but now you've got to tackle that ball carrier while he's got other guys pushing him forward. Like,
I
hear
what you're saying, right?
I don't understand it.
I don't think it's football,
No, it's not. It's not.
Yeah,
football.
right.
And so, I'm not a fan of the rule surviving, or the play surviving, I should say. I do think eventually it will get banned, and unfortunately, it will come at the cost of probably some injuries. And that's all it's going to take. Unfortunately, if Patrick Mahomes or if it's Josh Allen or even Jalen Hurts,
right.
We see if we see week 2 and the league's reigning MVP has a season-ending injury on a tush push play, I think you're going to see it banned in 2026. And unfortunately, it'll come at the cost of one of the best quarterbacks, best players in the league getting a serious injury.
So last thing I have on it is you mentioned Mahomes. Mahomes doesn't do it because I'm sure the Chiefs think it's dangerous. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I forget what else I was going to say on that note. Oh, we saw it in the playoffs when the Eagles played Washington. They're just jumping off sides over and over and over, and nobody wants to see down the goal line. Defenses just start doing goofy stuff. And speaking of goofy stuff, I hesitate to bring this up. I'm not making light of anyone, but it is quite humorous. But Mike Leach back in the day, he had a theory. He wanted to find a very athletic little person, put him on his team, hand him the football, and throw him over the pile. Would we be cool with that? It's not real. This isn't football.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that this is to your point, it's also just, it's not exciting. It's not a fun play to watch. It's 4th and 1. There's no suspense because it's a near automatic play, and it's almost completely, undefendable. Everybody else is, outside of anybody who's in the backfield can be touched, at the line of scrimmage, just like in a normal formation, you trot out 12 personnel. If you're in a single back formation, everybody but the quarterback and the running back can be touched at the snap of the ball. All of a sudden, we're going to put a couple of guys further back behind the line of scrimmage just so they can push the quarterback forward. There's a lot that I don't like about the play. It's just
I think we see it similarly. Yeah. And it's not. I do get the logic. Well, then just learn how to stop it. Okay, that's fine. I mean, that's fine. But I mean, it's not like the Eagles would be bad at just doing a traditional QB sneak either. I'm sure that'll work almost as well for them.
Seriously. I think if you already look at the percentage of quarterback sneaks that actually like throughout the league, pretty much most of them work anyway. So it's like, are you
2 yards out sometimes? Though.
Are you really killing the game if you ban the tush push? Like, seriously, is this the hill that some teams want to die on? Like, I
not at all. Right.
Seriously.
I think this will be the last year for it.
Yeah, hopefully. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, some possible hope for the Steelers offense, even without a starting quarterback under contract, possibly. We'll talk about that when we come back right after this.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Southside Beat here on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Steelers YouTube channel and podcasting network. So some flack for Arthur Smith last year as the offensive coordinator. Steelers did progress a bit as an offense. It wasn't, it was pretty, it wasn't all that great. It was, a minor improvement in terms of overall production, both in points, yards, everything like that. You want to see more from an experienced offensive coordinator, especially one who's had a lot of success in multiple seasons. And so I was very curious about like how he could possibly be better in year 2. And I started to think about the personnel decisions that were happening last year. And I am thoroughly convinced that we did not see the real Arthur Smith offense in 2024.
I 100% agree. And you're not the big time self-promoter, but I urge everyone to go to the site and check out your article. You really lay it out extremely well. I did kind of a piggyback podcast on it too to kind of pump it up.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. There's some good stats in there, and it doesn't really. It resembles the Arthur Smith Titans offense, but that's what he wants. And people might not remember that team, but they traded like a 5th round pick for Ryan Tannehill from Miami, who at that point looked like a bust. Miami's just getting out from a former 1st round pick.
Yeah.
And really revitalized his career and made him a legit Pro Bowl type quarterback. And the system had a lot to do with it. I mean, now Derrick Henry certainly helped, and they had good players, A.J. Brown, etc.
Yep.
But there was so many play action. Hit A.J. Brown over the middle. He shrugs off a defender, takes it to the house.
Yep.
And Metcalf and Brown aren't the same, but they do have some similarities, and they were teammates in college. And, I don't remember your article verbatim, but I think we're going to talk about Wilson versus Rodgers. I think we're going to talk about Johnson versus Harris. But I also don't think George Pickens was real eager or great at, deep dig routes and things like that. And Metcalf is. I mean, he's not great out of his breaks, but he goes over the middle and he's big and he's physical and he breaks tackles,
Yeah. So probably the two biggest parts of an Arthur Smith offense. And just to kind of give a historical context to that, because some people just think that that's Arthur Smith. He wants to run out of these huge formations all the time, all these big guys. He just wants to run the ball all this old school way.
He does use a lot of tight end usage. There's no question about that.
Absolutely. Think about his history and where he learned, where he was influenced. And that would be primarily through Matt LaFleur, the current head coach of the Packers. Matt LaFleur was the offensive coordinator in Tennessee the year before Arthur Smith became the OC for the Titans.
They promoted Smith after he became the Packers head coach.
Correct. And this is after 7 years of him just holding multiple roles and not really ever being like a quarterback's coach or anything like that, like the traditional type coach that you'd see promoted to an OC. I think the highest position he ever held was like a tight ends coach. And then LaFleur comes in for 1 year and then gets the head coach for the Packers job. LaFleur wants to take him to Green Bay with him to be his OC. And Arthur Smith instead takes the promotion from within and becomes the OC in Tennessee and explodes. And that offense helps lead the Titans to the AFC Championship in 2019. And they have a very, very successful season, not going as far in the playoffs, but still have another great year in 2020, which made him one of the hottest.
They're the number one seed in the AFC that year.
Yeah. And so that was, and then, we talk about, who were the hot coaches during that hiring cycle. The Falcons hired him to be their head coach. It obviously didn't work out. Part of that was some of the personnel. Their quarterbacks were terrible.
Oh, worse than the Steelers during that stretch.
Hard to do.
End of career Matt Ryan. Ritter's terrible. I mean, Mariota's pretty bad too, right? I mean, it was a really rough stretch.
Mariota was benched in 2019 when for the Titans when Arthur Smith was the OC there, and as soon as they put Ryan Tannehill in, the offense just exploded. So it's very, very interesting to see how that played out. Anyway, so that's some of the history.
Super quick, like we can definitely argue if Arthur Smith's a good head coach. I think he did some poor head coaching things.
Right.
Wasn't great at the podium. I mean, that kind of stuff too. But I think if you focus on him as a coordinator, and we'll get into it, and I know you're about to lay it out, you're going to like him a lot more as opposed to just a lot of people's first exposure was head coach. People don't nerd out like we do and do the you know what I mean? And that wasn't a great look all the time.
Right. And so when you look at the history and look at so he was influenced by Matt LaFleur. Okay, well, Matt LaFleur comes straight from the Kyle Shanahan. Actually, I would even say Mike Shanahan coaching.
Yeah, I was to say that's old school West Coast. Right.
And so, he was on the same staff. When you look at that, by the way, that coaching
staff. Washington staff? Yeah.
Yeah, for Washington from 2010 to 2013. I mean, you had Mike Shanahan as the head coach. Kyle Shanahan was OC. Sean McVay was tight ends coach. LaFleur was the quarterback's coach. I mean, I haven't even talked about the defensive side of the ball.
Right.
Just offensive side of the ball. You're talking
Danny Smith was the special teams coordinator.
Yeah. So it's crazy to look at everybody who was on that staff. And so LaFleur comes straight from that. And he followed Kyle Shanahan to Atlanta, was his quarterback's coach whenever he was the OC in Atlanta. Then when McVay becomes head coach for the Rams, he follows McVay, becomes their OC. And then he goes to Tennessee to finally do something on his own. And then 1 year later gets a head coaching job. So LaFleur.
And by the way, I think he's an excellent head coach with Green Bay.
Yeah, he's done a phenomenal job.
And offensive mind. Yeah.
And he helped resurrect, but kind of give Rodgers a second wave
I think sort of resurrect. I mean,
yeah,
people don't remember this that well, but when they drafted Jordan Love, Rodgers' career was starting to show chinks. And whether I always said this, it's like, was that Love pick worth it before he'd ever played? And I'm like,
right.
Well, you got 2 MVPs out of the quarterback position since you drafted Jordan Love in the first round.
Yeah.
Even if it just motivated Rodgers, but him and LaFleur had a really good relationship. And there was a lot of concern, Rodgers, old dog, new tricks. I'm going to do it my way.
Yeah.
I want McCarthy. I'm going to do my thing. I don't want to do it this new guy. And I'm sure they butted heads. They're big personalities. But then LaFleur got a lot out of Rodgers. Like best quarterback in the league type stuff,
Oh, yeah. He won MVP in 2020, I think it was.
Yeah. At least one together.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, again, that's Arthur Smith's influence is Matt LaFleur. So the offense is very similar. Well, the offense is built on primarily combining West Coast passing concepts. We're talking about West Coast offense. We're going all the way back to Bill Walsh and how that's evolved over the years.
Mike Shanahan learned from Walsh, who taught these guys. Right.
And so what Mike Shanahan did, what he did was he took the passing concepts from the West Coast offense and combined it with the outside zone, wide zone, rushing concepts. And it exploded. It's one of the reasons why the Broncos won back-to-back Super Bowls in the late 90s.
It's all over the league now,
and it's everywhere. So that's why so this is what Arthur Smith wants to do. He wants to run outside zone, wide zone, and he wants to then use play action off of that and using those play action concepts to help primarily attack the middle of the field. Not all the time. You can't just consistently throw to one area of the field. You have to have an expansive playbook where you can do the bootleg stuff that where you have the deep, the intermediate, and the short on the bootlegs and stuff like that. But that's not all you want to do out of play action. You don't want to just fake the handoff, roll out, and have your 3 options and possibly have to check it down all the time because the defense is taking everything way downfield. That's what the Steelers were doing last year. They were doing all of this play action, bootleg. All right, let me go read the curl flat defender. I can't hit the intermediate route because he's getting too much depth, so I'm just going to check it down to the flat. How many times did we see that last year? A lot. And it's hard to...
I urge people to check out my Twitter timeline. Some of this is good and bad. The check down rate. Pro football, terrible. I don't know if you saw that, but Wilson was way higher than anybody else.
Yeah.
In terms of check down rate last year. But unfortunately, the 3 people behind him were Rudolph, Rodgers, and Fields.
Yeah.
Which we can get to, but
we will get to that. And so long story short, Arthur Smith inherits Najee Harris. I mean, he's already on the roster, so you can't do anything about Najee Harris. Najee is not an outside zone, wide zone runner. He's just, that's not his forte. He can do it every now and then, especially when it's well blocked. But when you're talking about a guy who can consistently go from primary attack point to reading each defender back across the formation, it's just not it's not what he does. And then having the ability
to have very good vision.
Yeah. So,
there's a lot of it, right?
You need good vision in order to do that, and he doesn't have it. So then the Steelers go and sign Russell Wilson, who consistently had not attacked the middle of the field through his days in Seattle and through his 2 years at Denver. So never. So you have a quarterback who doesn't want to throw to the middle of the field, and you have a running back
because he can't see it. It's not he's bashful about it. He doesn't see it well. Kyler Murray doesn't do it well either. Right.
And then you have a running back who can't really, who's your primary running back who is not overly great at running the system that Arthur Smith wants to run. So when you dig through the numbers, and I don't want to go through all of them now, but
they're not the ingredients you're looking for if you're the chef, but that's what you got. That's what's in the fridge,
Right. And so long story short, I will pull out some of the numbers here.
Yeah, they're pretty impressive.
When you look at what the Steelers did when they were attacking the middle of the field through play action last year, number one, they were 4th lowest in the NFL in terms of those targets. They had 15 play action dropbacks in which the middle of the field was targeted. So that's 4th lowest in the NFL. The rest of the numbers, they had a 106 passer rating. That's 15th. That sounds good, but it was 15th. So middle of the pack. Yards per attempt was 6.27. That's 31st in the league. Yikes. So they didn't attack defenses deep at all. That tells me a lot of it was, where's my outlet? Where's my check down? And that's what it was.
And we know Russ has a driver and a putter. He doesn't really have irons.
Yeah, he's got a short game. He's got a short game. He's got a driver. He does not have the ability to
Not so good when he's in the fairway,
Completion percentage over expected, which really tests quarterback's accuracy based on the difficulty of the throw. They ranked 28th. Not good. Average depth of target, 5.9 yards, 31st in the league. Not great.
Not great.
Total air yards, 82, which was 30th in the league. First read percentage, meaning the first, you hit your primary read when you
how the play is drawn up, running, you know what I mean? Like it worked right off the bat, boom, right.
26.7%, which was dead last in the league. So even if Arthur Smith drew up the play action concept that would attack the middle of the field, the first read was not getting hit.
Right.
And
partially
then
because it's not being seen, and you also have the perfect receivers for it, and right.
And then when you look at check down rate, depending on how you want to look at this, it was 40%, which was, if you want to look at you don't want to check it down, they were dead last in the league, which means they had the highest check down rate in the league. It's not good. Even if he was calling the stuff that you want him to call, it wasn't getting executed.
Fields has never been a great middle of the field passer either, by the way.
No, he's not.
And I know some people will blame Tomlin, and let's be risk adverse. Don't throw where all the bodies are. There might be some truth to that, knowing that we're going to have to run this thing through defense. But he didn't mind when Ben threw in the middle field. It's not a Tomlin thing. It's how do you win today?
I get certain matchups, especially week 1, they're facing
the Bates thing, and
they're facing a really good safety tandem in Atlanta. Justin Fields is your quarterback.
Arthur Smith just coached. That was his team.
I understand,
right? That's fine, right?
I understand going into week 1 and being all right, I don't want to go in and have the guy who just turned the ball over 41 times in 3 seasons start throwing at Jesse Bates all day. I get that. I understand that. Be a little bit more
Let's not throw at their best defender.
Right.
People do that to Minka too, folks.
Right.
When he's in the deep middle, they don't throw in the deep middle as much,
Yeah. So when you then look at, who are the Steelers going to have in 25? How can this possibly be better? Well, right now they have Mason Rudolph. Rudolph has experience in terms of, executing the type of things that Arthur Smith wants to do. I am calling them the Shanahan play action concepts, especially these high cross ones. There are several of them. And Mason Rudolph, I even had a play in that article in which Mason Rudolph perfectly executed one. But even then, when you look at what he was last year on a terrible Titans team, he had a 126.4 passer rating on play action attempts to the middle of the field. So even if Mason Rudolph has to start multiple games for you, either because Aaron Rodgers doesn't sign or Aaron Rodgers gets hurt and he has to start multiple games, you have a guy who is not bashful to throw to the middle of the field and does a very, very good job of attacking it. Again, 126.4 on that Titans team is impressive because that was
terrible protection and they're really bad O-line.
Bad football team. Bad football team.
Picked first overall.
Right. So then you talk about Aaron Rodgers. Okay, can Aaron Rodgers fit in the system? Can he? Well, we just talked about he just played 4 years under Matt LaFleur, who's the guy who influenced Arthur Smith. So I think that's probably going to work too. Yeah.
Now, I will say, watching Jets tape, Rodgers did show some end-of-career Ben. I don't want to get hit. Get it out of my hand.
That's the concern.
Check down. I may not stand tall in the pocket like I did 5 years ago. I'm not quite as mobile to buy the time.
Yeah.
So we'll see. You're not getting the 30-year-old Aaron Rodgers.
No, you're not.
We all know that, but what version are you getting?
Yeah. And that, I think, is the probably the only concern, is because some of these play action concepts do require some trust in the offensive line, because if you're attacking deep down the middle of the field, and I'm not talking
play
about
action takes time.
It takes time. You're already having to pick the handoff. You've got to allow your offensive line to set up the blocks because they're trying to sell run block and they're really having to be in pass protection.
flip your eyes around, and right.
It takes some time. That maybe you can try to keep the eyes up a little bit more or a little quicker by doing it out of the pistol. Whatever you want to do. I mean, there are a number of ways to possibly do that. But and J Mood says here, Rodgers looked old last season. I don't think it will get better with age. Well, the only rebuttal I would have to that is that he looked better in the second half of the season than he did in the first half.
Way better.
Yeah.
I mean, not like old Rodgers. He's not winning MVPs, but and he did come out quick, and he would dump it down a lot. All four of these guys have a crazy check down percentage.
Yes.
For different reasons, but it did get better. You got to remember, I mean, I'm not defending him because it's not, he did look old last year. I mean, he looks old now. He is old. I mean, like I look old. I mean,
he's 41. Like he's not. If anybody is thinking that either myself or Matt or anybody else is saying that Aaron Rodgers is going to come in and win a 5th MVP,
right?
No, like if you can get 75 to 80% of what Aaron Rodgers used to be, it's an improvement on what you've had at quarterback.
And he's still really crafty from the neck up, and all the tricks and all that kind of stuff too. And he can still throw it. I mean, he can still put it where he wants. Right.
That's what I was about to say. There are still some throws. I went back and looked through some of that second half of the season Jets tape.
Especially when Adams had been there post-bye.
My gosh. There are still some throws where you're like, okay,
whoa,
I can see why he won 4 MVPs because
and he'll try it. That's the thing, is he'll try it too. So real quick, I mean, like before Mahomes, anyone even know who Mahomes was? I've been doing this a really long time. I often said Aaron Rodgers might be my first pick of all quarterbacks I've ever seen if we're picking up teams on the back, to build my team around. And my logic behind it, and again, he's not the same player now, but when you look at all the Hall of Famers, his highlight tape, this is like pre-Mahomes, was as good as anyone's. I mean, it really was. It's as good as Marino's or anyone out there. And his low light tape was as good as anyone's. Like, he doesn't turn the ball over. He's very smart with the ball. He will throw it away, and that's prime Rodgers we're talking about. So, I mean, MVP guy. I mean,
he did have, I think it was like 11 interceptions last year, which for him is a lot.
It's a lot.
That's a lot for him.
It was like Beatty Bishop picked him off twice. We don't want that guy. I mean, well, one of them bounced off someone's the into Beatty's hands, and the other one was a bad throw. Okay. We're not going to just judge the Steeler games,
Right. And that's the big thing. It's like everybody wanted to hate on Kyle McCord because Pitt saw the worst version of Kyle McCord.
Right.
And Jerry says, I don't think Aaron Rodgers will miss those play action passes. I mean, he has a better chance of hitting them because he's played with them before.
Yeah.
I mean,
thrived in the system.
Yeah. I mean, he has done. I mean, I think it was 2021. Now, granted, we're talking 4 years ago, so I'm not saying that he's going to do this again.
No doubt.
But he had a 158.1 passer rating on play action when attack in the middle of the field. I mean, nearly perfect. I mean, we're talking. We're talking pretty much perfect in attacking the middle of the field. And so
there's obviously a history there. Wilson never had that history. You can't just be like Wilson got old. I mean, Wilson's best days, he was bad over the middle.
Yeah.
Or just didn't attempt them. That's the thing. I mean, they might be open. He just doesn't let it fly.
Well, see, that's the thing is actually when you go through and look at Russell Wilson's actual numbers when he attacks the middle of the field, I'm not talking about just play action, but just in general, when he throws between the numbers, it's actually not bad. It's just,
I'm sure.
It's just actually like the attempts are bottom of the league or near the bottom of the league. It's just he doesn't do it consistently.
I talk about this a lot. You love stats. I love stats. We love advanced metrics. We quote them often. But there isn't a stat, but coaches know it. When there's a throw you should make and you don't. When you choose not to or don't see it, and nothing makes coaches crazier. They spend 100-hour week preparing for the Bengals. Oh, I think they're in a tendency to say I'm getting cover 2 here. I call the cover 2 beater, and he doesn't throw it. I mean, it makes you insane. And a lot of those are Wilson over the middle. Rodgers will throw he'll go to the right guy. I mean, and see it.
Yeah. I'm going to let a question here close us out today. Leonardo asks, who would you rather have as QB1? Rodgers from the second part of last season and his ego, or 2023 Rudolph? I'll kick it to you first, but I have some thoughts on this one too.
Rodgers. I want Rodgers no matter what over Rudolph no matter what. And I like Rudolph. I'm really happy he's here. He had a couple good stints here. I mean, there was a stretch there a couple years ago, leading into the Jets game, he gets hurt. I thought he was really turning the corner at that point. That was the Duck year, the year he got hit over the head with the helmet.
Yeah.
And then we obviously post Canada, he was really good here. But I still think he's at best a high-end backup. And I think Rodgers can win you a playoff game. He might.
Yes.
He might be terrible. I mean, I'm not, again, where he's not the best quarterback in the league. And I don't know if he can handle an 18-game season and all those things. But he could win you a playoff game.
And that's, I think the one thing that, and if the Steelers were so convinced that Mason Rudolph in those 4 games in 2023 was going to be a legit thing, like something you could really count on, he would have been re-signed and made the starter.
It would have been cheap too. It would have been very easy.
I mean, it would have been no questions asked. They wouldn't have ever had to go acquire Justin Fields or sign Russell Wilson for 2024. They would have just re-signed Mason Rudolph. It's a 4-game stretch. Did he look great in those 4 games? Yes, he did. He put up some great numbers in those 4 games. But the word that I have used to describe Mason Rudolph's play during those 4 games, it sounds like a knock, and it's really not, was competent. Right. He was competent in those 4 games. He didn't do anything overly special. He dropped back. He went through his reads. He made his throws. And especially fans are watching and going, but man, it was so much better than what was happening before that. Because you didn't have a quarterback who was doing that. Right. And you didn't have a quarterback who was able to drop back in the pocket, sit in the pocket, make his throws from the pocket. And I think Canada was an anchor too. Yes, it was. I mean, like as bad as it gets, right? Yeah. And so I'm not sure if you brought this up, but I just want to make sure we do say it about this whole conversation. Yeah. Is Caleb Johnson is a great fit. I don't remember if we said that or not earlier. No, we've been spending so much time on the quarterback situation. Right. Yeah. But he is a perfect outside zone. That's all they basically ran it at. I mean, a ton. And if and when they acquire another wideout, I bet he'll be good at in-breaking routes. Yeah. I don't think he'll just be a speedster outside the number or stretch the field guy. A 2025 version of Corey Davis, maybe? Yeah, there you go. It was pretty good, by the way. Corey Davis was good for a stretch, right? Yeah, I mean, Corey Davis, 2020, that was the number 2 in Tennessee, and he had just under 1,000 yards that year. So, yeah, he made good money. He was like the 5th pick in the draft. I mean, he didn't have a great career, but he was a solid 2 for a while. Right. There was a question earlier that I did want to get to because it's just football talk and everything. Justin asked, Chris, when you say mid zone, do you mean vertical step zone blocking at the 3 tech instead of the 1 tech? Mid zone is just it's a change in the primary attack point for the running back. Outside zone or wide zone, the primary attack point for the running back is the play side hip of the tight end or the ghost tight end if there's not a tight end on that side of the formation. Mid zone attacks the B gap. So you're not looking to stretch the defense as laterally as you are in outside zone or wide zone, but you're also not trying to necessarily attack them straight on like you do in what some call inside zone or tight zone. It's basically halfway between inside zone and outside zone. Correct. It's midway between. That's why it's called mid zone. So other than that, there's not really much of a difference in terms of the blocking techniques other than, obviously outside zone, like true outside zone, the outside block is trying to reach block the edge defender because of how wide edge defenders are nowadays, you don't see a lot of true outside zone anymore. You see more what would be called wide zone where they're just trying to kick that guy out and then attack inside that. And then you're just reading each defender back across the formation and then cutting back as necessary. But the read part is big from Najee. It's huge. And to stick your foot in the ground and go, Yeah, that's why Jaylen Warren and Caleb Johnson are good at this because they will make those reads from defender to defender to defender back across the formation and then have the ability to make those reads, put a foot in the ground and make the cut and go north. That was not Najee. That's just not Najee's forte. I think I think he could have a really good year for the Chargers because the Chargers feel like a better fit for him based off of the way they run the football. Yeah. And I think there's a common misconception, which I 100% understand before I started learning this stuff, that running backs fit any system. You give them the ball and they go, and it's not true. I mean, at every position, there's so much scheme oriented stuff in this league. I mean, there's very few players. Actually, heard Bucky Brooks say this the other day. 85% of the league, in his opinion, are scheme dependent players. Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's rare to find a guy who can just do everything. You know,
and that's when you
at all positions,
right? And that's why, like right now, you're looking at quarterbacks who can best fit under your offensive coordinator. But if the draft comes next year, and Arthur Smith is still your offensive coordinator, which I would expect him to be, and the quarterback that you can possibly trade up to go get is not necessarily the best absolute fit for Arthur Smith, it does not bleeping matter, because you could possibly get yourself a franchise quarterback. You then adapt everything to that guy. Right.
And Arthur Smith had to adapt last year to the guys he had. He didn't run his stuff as much, you know.
And that's pretty much.
But I think this is there's reason for optimism, though. I mean,
yes.
Year 2 should always be better. I mean, you don't want to inherit all these guys, you know?
Right. Year 2 should be better. And also not just because of the actual, like, okay, it's not, you're not learning a whole new organization and anything anymore, but also now the personnel on the field, whether it's Mason Rudolph or Aaron Rodgers, the quarterback, looking at who is that running back now, looking at the fact that this offensive line is going to be another year in its development. Like, again, not saying that the Steelers are going to become a top 10 offense all of a sudden, but can it be better than it was? And can there be actual pretty significant improvement? There's a better chance for it, because now Arthur Smith really gets to coach the way he wants to coach, which every coach has their specialty. Like, and if you ask them to not coach their specialty, then what's the point? Like, you made a bad hire at that point.
I know you need to get rolling, but my last note here is we all love Ramon. We all love Max Starks. But this offense wants Fautanu, who can really run. Instead, like even the linemen are all the same. They're not going to draft a big, heavy-footed, mash-your-face guard or tackle. They're going to be guys that can get out in space and move. You know what I mean?
And so there's this misconception right here. Justin says the best coaches are the ones who optimize their existing talent.
Yeah. I mean, yes and no. I mean,
I understand that, but that's exactly what he did, is that he didn't coach the way he wanted to coach. He coached based off of what he even said. We didn't run as much outside zone last year because of the players that we had.
Yeah.
That's exactly what he did. But it's hard to,
I mean, there has to be some give and take with both. You're not just going to get perfect puzzle pieces every time. I mean, you have to adjust. There's no question.
It was a clunky fit.
It was.
That's
again, I don't want to spend too much time on it.
Yeah, no, we got to run.
The pre-Arthur Smith year or two, their man blocking stuff was really starting to take, all the pullers and like
it was.
So that kind of worried me with the hire too. Maybe rightfully so. I mean, we don't know if this is going to go great and they're going to be the best running team in the league or anything, but I had a problem with abandoning the best part of your running game before Smith was hired.
Yeah, that was so that was the only other part of this that you can question at this point was, why hire the guy? Why hire a guy who wants to run the offense that particular way when Najee was probably a better gap runner than he was a zone runner? Why not bring in a guy who's going to try to do that? Why not promote Eddie Faulkner at that point? I don't know. Whatever it is. So
well,
either way,
that's who the coordinator is. So
right. So now you've got to figure out the right personnel that's going to fit for the type of offense they want to run. Apparently, they've been wanting to be an outside zone team. They changed that under Matt Canada. They hired a much better version of that in Arthur Smith. So that's what they want to do. They want to be an outside zone team. So they hired offensive coordinators that can coach that. So now they have to have the right personnel in place to do that, which they've been doing that. They got an athletic center in Zach Frazier. They got an athletic tackle in Troy Fautanu. They got an athletic guard in Mason McCormick. And a bit of a physical freak if he realizes his potential in Broderick Jones. So yeah, it's just the decisions are being made based off of the type of offense they want to play. Just last year was a kind of a weird fit because, especially the Russell Wilson, because that was after the hire too.
And one of the problems is you don't have your choice of quarterbacks. I mean, you kind of have to take what the league gives you at this point too.
Right. All right. Well, that's going to do it for us. We went way over time today, so I hope you enjoyed. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back next week, some point. I don't know what day because OTAs do begin next week, and I will be on the South Side for all 3 days.
Me too.
So Oh, nice. All right.
Yeah, I'll be broadcasting down there with Dale.
Nice. All right. Well, I'll see you there, Matt, and we'll figure out when we're going to do this next week, what day. But we will be doing it sometime next week, and we'll break down some of the stuff we saw at OTAs, learned at OTAs. And that'll be fun. Fun to actually talk after we've seen some actual football activity.
Right.
That'll be fun. All right, guys, we'll catch you on the flippity flip. We'll see you later.